Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Thursday everybody. In yesterday's video we discussed the collapse in land use sales from developers due to the years-long housing crisis. The salient points were that, according to China Index Academy, during the first 5 months of this year, the top 100 developers in China spending on land purchases was down 26.7% from the same period a year ago. The slowdown accelerated from a 9.5% drop in the first 4 months. Land purchases in May was an incredible 74% lower than the same month a year ago. As concerningly, according to the E-House China Research and Development Institution, the inventory absorption period for new residential properties in China's top 100 cities was 26.5 months by the end of April, meaning it will take more than 2 years to clear the stock of new homes. 42 of China's top 100 cities experienced an increase in the absorption period to more than 36 months. Since yesterday, we have seen several new reports published on this space. We will cover it here now to supplement yesterday's coverage of the housing crisis. State-run financial outlet The Securities Times reports that local governments have accelerated the purchase of existing housing stock. According to incomplete statistics, nearly 20 cities, including Zhengzhou, provincial capital of Henan, Nanjing, provincial capital of Jiangsu, Wuhan, provincial capital of Hubei, Suzhou, and Wuxi, also nearby, have explicitly encouraged or promoted state-owned enterprises to purchase second-hand homes from home buyers. On the 2nd of June, Suzhou, for example, issued the Notice on Further Promoting the Stable and Healthy Development of the City's Real Estate Market Ordinance, with promoting the reduction of commercial housing inventory being an important part. The new policy in Suzhou clearly states that local state-owned enterprises will be organized to purchase some existing commercial housing at reasonable prices to use for affordable housing. It also encourages and supports qualified enterprises and social entities to purchase commercial housing for employee rentals. Chinese financial media outlet Yicai reports today that Changsha, provincial capital of Hunan, has become the first Chinese provincial capital to prod builders to refund deposits if buyers pull out. Yan Yuejin, research director at E-House China Research and Development, said that implementing a no-reason-to-return policy would reduce home buyers' concerns about the future and make them more willing to sign new contracts, boosting market confidence. Chinese financial media outlet Caixin writes yesterday that since the start of the year, at least 8 cities with over 5 million long-term residents, mostly in the economic powerhouses of the Yangtze River and Pearl River deltas, have lowered residency thresholds. Quote, "Many of them have also joined the nationwide trend of lifting local home buying curbs, which were introduced to cool China's then booming property market." End quote. Suzhou in East China's Jiangsu province announced Sunday that anyone who owns residential property in the city can apply for local residency. The city of nearly 13 million people also dropped all home purchase restrictions. Jiangsu's capital, Nanjing, and Hangzhou, the capital of neighboring Zhejiang province, also said in May that people who own property can obtain residency. Quote, "Over 490 million people in China, over 1/3 of the total population, don't have local residency where they live. It means a large number of non-local workers have difficulty enjoying equal public services and public goods despite having contributed tax revenue to the cities where they reside." End quote. This also means that major cities may make it through the housing crisis, but it's a very different story for hundreds of smaller cities in poorer regions where these people are immigrating from. Next up, in an exclusive piece, UK-based The Financial Times writes today that the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, the so-called Five Eyes Intelligence Sharing Alliance, have jointly warned that the People's Liberation Army is, quote, "aggressively recruiting," end quote, Western fighter pilots in an effort to train its own military aviators. The director of the UK-based NCSC expressed in a statement, quote, "To overcome their shortcomings, China's PLA has been aggressively recruiting Western military talent to train their aviators, using private firms around the globe that conceal their PLA ties and offer recruits exorbitant salaries." End quote. The Financial Times explains that the concerns about Western pilots training their PLA peers have intensified since revelations in 2022 that the Test Flying Academy of South Africa, a private school, had used more than 24 retired British Air Force, Navy and Army pilots to help train Chinese military pilots. The NCSC head said that the Western partners had achieved some success recently in preventing recruitment, but that PLA efforts continue to, quote,
evolve and response, end quote. One US official told the outlet, quote, "For some former military pilots, the opportunity to fly exotic fighter jets again can be a draw, and even more so when accompanied by a fat salary," end quote. The Five Eyes bulletin said PLA recruiters were also targeting flight engineers, air operations center staff, and experts with insight into military tactics. As part of the training, the PLA was trying to gain knowledge about state-of-the-art Western aircraft and tactics that might be used in, for example, a conflict over Taiwan. The US Department of Commerce has imposed sanctions on groups in China, Kenya, Laos, Malaysia, Singapore, South Africa, Thailand, the UK, and the United Arab Emirates for allegedly engaging in recruitment efforts. The UK has also updated its National Security Act to make it possible to prosecute former pilots for sharing certain military information. Next up, we move to Hong Kong, where we have seen more convictions and the death of the old system. But just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode, it's a huge help if you can hit the like button. Liking, sharing, and subscribing is a tremendous help for the channel. Also, a big thank you to everybody who replied to my question from yesterday's episode about the financing of the channel and the sponsorship situation. I received almost 500 comments in yesterday's video, most of them discussing this, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, which I very much appreciate. It seems that the consensus is people are happy if there's a slight increase in sponsorships every month. So as we move into the second half of the year, I will transition from having 1 to 2 sponsored features per month to 2 to 4 sponsored features per month. As before, all sponsored features will be clearly labeled, and I will identify videos in advance that have sponsored features in them. There will also be a firewall between the sponsors and the content. I will not work with a sponsor who even suggests or tries to influence any of the content. I will remain very strict about this point. Thank you again for the feedback and all the incredible support. I very much appreciate it. Let's continue. Next up, Hong Kong has seen a new round of political figures convicted for the crime of subversion under the new national security law. A Hong Kong court convicted more than a dozen activists on subversion charges, quote, "completing the decimation of the city's once formidable pro-democracy political opposition in the most sweeping case under a 4-year-old national security law imposed on the city by Beijing," end quote, in the words of US-based The Wall Street Journal. The authorities allege that their election plan, which included a primary among candidates who pledged to block government legislation that would force the city's Beijing-backed chief executive to step down, amounted to an illegal subversion of state power, according to the court. Defense attorneys and human rights advocates said the pro-democracy lawmakers were engaged in standard electoral politics using powers enshrined in Hong Kong's basic law. Owen Chow, to give an example, a nursing student, has spent most of the past 4 years in prison and in repeated court hearings, fighting charges carrying a possible life sentence. Chow told UK media that, quote, "he had done no more than fight for democratic freedoms legally enshrined when his home city was handed over to China from Britain in 1997, end quote. In all, 14 democracy activists were convicted in the largest national security trial in the Special Administrative Region to date, part of a larger trial of 47 persons. Beijing also slammed international reactions to the trial with their usual rhetoric. In response to comments made by Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong, the spokesperson for the European External Action Service, and the Consulates General of the US, the UK and other countries, a spokesperson of the Commissioner's Office of China's Foreign Ministry in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region expressed, quote, "those remarks openly defame Hong Kong's democracy, freedom, human rights and rule of law and wantonly smear Hong Kong's status as an international financial centre, while beautifying and exonerating anti-China disruptors in Hong Kong and interfering with the legitimate judiciary of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region," end quote. During sentencing, which will take place at a later date, the defendants are expected to be sorted into tiers, legal scholars have said. Those considered principal offenders could be sentenced to between 10 years and life imprisonment. Active participants between 3 and 10 years in prison. Others who are found guilty could be imprisoned or subject to unspecified restrictions for up to 3 years. These are not slaps on the wrist. These are painful warnings to others that Hong Kong is firmly in a new political era. The old political system is dead, and Beijing will not suffer those, not with the new program. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Thursday, and I will see you all tomorrow.